Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe with the news of the day. I haven't done this in a while. So much stuff has gone by since the last time I did this, which was the continuing fallout of the death of Charlie Kirk and the removal and the return of Jimmy Kimmel to his show. And admittedly, the last video, as much as I put as much into it, the audio got janky. So it became more of a old circa 1970s dubbed over Chinese kung fu movie. Like that. So apologies for that. Remember, I don't really edit this much. But as the stuff that has gone by, it would take too long to go into everything in detail. But I do want to at least get bite size of the things that have gone by, which will funnel into pretty much what I really wanted to talk about in this. So let's go with, of all the things that happened going into, during, and now in the next few days after the government shutdown. When the government shutdown was looming, the main issue that was going on that the Democrats were putting their foot down was the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Now, why was this such an important issue? For when you drill down the numbers on paper and static on its own, for those who are having trouble with any particular insurance, especially insurance premiums that will be skyrocketing, thanks to the efforts of the big beautiful bill that happened earlier. These subsidies that came out as a temporary measure during the Biden administration on the time of COVID was about to lapse. Republicans want to get rid of anything to do with Obamacare, especially Trump, so they didn't really mind. But the timing of everything happening, from the premiums to the subsidies, it did become a valid point for Democrats to take a stand on. Now, what was the argument against this? Republicans came up with bullshit, pretty much, that their sticking point as to not continue with the subsidies was that illegal immigrants was getting insurance off of Obamacare, which they can't really do. But they claimed it anyway and wanted to get it into the ethers so that people would think that, so that when the subsidies go away, it's not such a bad thing because it's all damn darn illegals that are just eating up all the benefits from regular American folk. I don't know where that accent came from. But even though it gets pointed out over and over again, especially on these talking head shows on whatever media you're going for, either the left-wing, left-leaning CNN or MSNBC, or on Fox for the right-leaning, or the fire burners of OAN and whatever else is out there on the right end scale. There is a loggerhead point that closed down the government and closed it down for 40 days, still counting until we get to the final point where the government will shut down after the House agrees to this. People will assign blame upon who's really caused the shutdown. Is it the Democrats who are just using these subsidies issue, but they don't really give a shit about it because, all of this is just because Obamacare is just so terrible, We don't have a plan ourselves, but we just want you to know that Obamacare is super duper awful, And even though that we don't have a plan ourselves to replace it with, we just want to destroy it. And then we'll worry about that later. Oh, and don't forget about the illegal immigrants. They're totally on it. Totally. Trust us. Christians. So people going back and forth on who's to blame, if it's the Democrats or Republicans. And dragging it out. They keep those who are right-leaning and pundits would just say, oh, well, Democrats are just stopping them. There'll be a resolution. They're just stopping them. So it's really their fault. It's their fault. This is a Schumer shutdown. Oh, yeah. Okay. From my point of view, the blame, I go with the idea of who's really to blame on those who benefit from the shutdown. Not those who through their actions or inactions are getting people hurt, but those who are benefiting. So, cui bono? Who benefits? Who benefits from the shutdown? Well, we can come up with theoretical benefits or actual physical, tangible, factual benefits, such as the benefit of using the shutdowns as an excuse for Speaker Mike Johnson of the House to not seat the newly elected Congresswoman from Arizona, not seat her because she was going to be the deciding vote needed to release all the Epstein files that he's been blocking. So he chose not to seat her. In an unprecedented time period, this lady who had been duly elected was denied being seated for over a month. And one of the justifications of that is that, oh, there's a shutdown. The thing about that, though, is that during the shutdown, Mike Johnson also took the time to keep the House closed. Not only the fact of the shutdown, but making sure the House members of his caucus was not even there. Sent them back home, extend their vacation. Remember a few months back when this vacation started? It was around the time that they were actually seriously about to vote on the issues concerning the Epstein files, and Mike Johnson decided, oh, well, we can't do anything about it now. We're on vacation. Sorry, gotta go. Yeah. So that's a benefit. Another benefit is that in this game of politics, especially for blaming the Democrats on this, Trump was able to enjoy firing people who are on furlough, making sure that people would not get paid or threaten those who were furloughed of their back pay if and when the government shutdown was to return. He loves not paying people. Loves it. Gets out of it, all the better. I mean, look at the majority of his major construction deals that he would get cheap labor or immigrant labor that he does not pay. And it seems to be the case here. So I look at that, and them going after things like the SNAP benefits. Now, why this is a sticking point, and this is a point where the Democrats did finally relent, is that they were denying SNAP benefits. At the start of November, they cut them off. And here's the thing, because our talking point argument is that because the government shut down, they can give them SNAP benefits and they're not going to pay for people to be fed on SNAP benefits because government shut down. So again, Democrats' fault. Problem with that is that SNAP benefit payment funding was already allocated, meaning it already was a done deal. They were going to get the money. It's the rainy day fund for SNAP benefits in the event of a catastrophe or a government shutdown. That the SNAP benefits for the people, for women and children, for low income, was still going to be paid for and people would be getting their benefits. But Trump denied that, blocked them. And again, the excuse is the shutdown, but once again, Trump acts like a villain from a Shakespearean play where he does a soliloquy and tells the audience what he's going to do and why the motivations of him doing it. So just to hurt them Democrats, he's going to stop the SNAP benefits. Okay? Ignoring the fact that the majority of people on SNAP, especially, are in red states. These are his own voters, but he doesn't know. He doesn't care. Even if he did know, he wouldn't care. So there's another benefit from the government shutdown going to Republicans and to Trump, that they're able to do this stuff. Not to mention the air traffic controllers that were not getting paid. So there are a lot of them that's not going to be doing the job, which by result of that causes the percentages of flights to be canceled in airports because they don't have the personnel, because they're not getting paid, because the government shut down. Who benefits? Now, with that, you can also say the Republicans benefit, especially Trump benefits from that, because that's the kind of stuff they were doing at the height of Doge. Remember that waste, fraud, and abuse? And they were ripping people out of the airports because of DEI? DEI. It caused a helicopter crash. That was all DEI. Yeah. So they're continuing to do what they wanted to do. Now, all this money that was being denied, right? Where was it going to go? We're in a government shutdown. There shouldn't be any major transactional things, especially involving the government, at all. So why is there a new ballroom being built at the White House? Why are they destroying the East Wing of the White House to help build this monstrosity, idiocy of the Gilded Age retro ballroom that when you look at the map and the hypothetical of what this thing is supposed to look like, the structure itself looks bigger than the fucking White House. Why is everything within the White House is getting the Fabergé gold treatment during a government shutdown? Why are we, in another effort for no apparent reason apparently, that Trump is trying to push to help bail out Argentina in the tune of $40 billion over their livestock issues, which hurts American ranchers. But to him, he's saying, well, we have to do it because lives are at stake. Lives in Argentina are at stake here. So fuck the American ranchers, majority of which voted for Trump. Side tangent. One of the reasons why it's been a while since I did this is because I also took part in the No Kings protest. I was at the No Kings protest with my roommate and in a group of her friends. We went through D.C., walked around D.C. at the No Kings protest. The No Kings protest was a massive protest across the country to the tune of 7 million people that came out. And despite the sad little hype, sad little propaganda like Mike Johnson did, that these were all hate America rallies, no, they were not. I didn't see any hating of America when I was walking with the people. Everyone was chanting, everyone was singing, everyone was proud to be American. I think in the next video I'm actually going to use as my avatar my sign that I was waving around. One of the points I said on the sign was, who really hates America here? Is it the people exercising their First Amendment right to protest because they love America? Or would it be a particular government that decides to send their own troops into their own cities to quell opposition, to help ICE? Those are other side tangents that we get on. As I said, this will be a much longer video than it may be if I really go into detail of all these other issues. But all that stuff, including that it was freshly starting the government shutdown, that came about during the time of the No Kings. So, from there, I had a good time. I was very proud to be an American, walking amongst my fellow Americans. Again, don't take the hype with a grain of salt that was also all white and all old. Now, old, sure, 47 years old, people say I'm middle-aged. My knee doesn't feel middle-aged sometimes. But when I was walking the streets of D.C. in a protest, it wasn't all white. It wasn't all old. It was every shade, color of America. Every demographic of our country. Men, women, straight, gay, bisexual, trans, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, men, women, children. We were all out there. We were all Americans, making our point. And one of the people doing like the knee-jerk, not opposition, because the opposition was already whining about it, but those who, I guess, was for whatever reason downplaying it, saying that how, there wasn't really any value. It wasn't going to cause anything. It wasn't going to do anything. And a Casparian says something similar to the effect that it will not cause an action. There's no kings. I disagree with that. Because what it does do is that it shows that 7 million people came out, decided to make signs, decided to go on to the streets of the United States, to be on overpasses, to be along the side of the road, to be walking down major cities, expressing themselves while we still have the right to do so. That is action. And sometimes it's not some sort of, revolutionary thing where it causes change immediately or such a direct action. But it's also a release valve that is sometimes needed, especially in this country, which is unique, that allows it as a right to do so. Because the amazing thing about this, despite how people claim it's a hate America, despite, it could be Antifa or communist driven, that it could be violent or whatever, not one police action, not one act of violence, not one act of mayhem, nothing untoward happened. 7 million people, a protest across the country. No one caused any harm to anyone in that protest. Those on the other side in little pockets here and there, was causing little mischief, causing little drama, waving guns around. But not one of the protesters, not I, not the 6,099,999 people did anything illegal. And protests like this is a release valve for the frustrations of this country. It becomes necessary in order to prevent things that would happen when someone is desperate enough to do so. It is also a byproduct of that we were walking around together, looking at each other, realizing, despite the news that is on TV, despite this feeling that we are just going down the tube, especially with the Mad Taco King and all his antics and his sycophants that serve him, that are his minions, that are just driving this country down, that was continuing, perpetuating the government shutdown that he and them were benefiting from. We looked around at each other to realize we were not alone. We were not the isolated voice, lost in the noise. That we were the American people. And a good portion of those American people proved it in a special election. Another thing I took part of as a voter. The special election came and went. People tried to, of course, downplay that too. That, oh yes, this is not as big of an achievement as it is because they were all blue states. Of course they're going to vote blue. They're supposed to vote for Mandami in New York. They're supposed to going to vote for Spamberger here in Virginia. And, New Jersey, all that. It was a no-brainer. Why are we even talking about it? Reason why we're talking about it is that it was a massive blue wave. And not just for these major races, even down-ballot local precincts, local governments in red states saw losses to Democratic voices. Not in major seats like congressmen, senators, or governors, or whatevers, but delegate seats that you never thought a blue voice would be, now they're there. For Virginia, my Virginia, people who chalked it up as a blue state don't know Virginia. Yeah, it's a blue state. It's a blue state because of the major population centers, like Fairfax County, where I'm from, Loudoun County, Prince William County, Norfolk, and its environs. Majority mass population centers, majority of the time, those are Democratic liberal leaning. Majority of the state, geographically, sea of red. Sea of red throughout the counties, throughout the state. Majority of these counties are red. Republican leading, pro-Trump. Here is why the win in Virginia was so epic. None of the fact that Spanberger won in the amazing gap of votes that she got, because it was overwhelming. For those who understand Virginia, in its many counties, many of those counties are Republican, red-leaning, Republican voting, Trump voting. All but 6 of these counties voted for Spanberger. That's just amazing. It is a push away from what was going on, not only with the government shutdown that was happening. Virginia is a major state, especially along its seaboard from Norfolk. And from the D.C. area, which is Fairfax. So a lot of government, a lot of military. So government shutdowns affects a bit more. But it is a rejection of the Republican narrative. It is what we saw reverberate from the No Kings protest into this vote. And it became the narrative that no matter how many times Republican pundits would scream it on CNN or Fox or this or that, claiming that the Democrats was the reason for the government shutdown, that this was the Schumer shutdown, that the Democrats would shut the government down and refuse to reopen it. Despite the fact that the Republicans and Donald Trump owns the White House, owns the House, owns the Senate. It got to the point where Trump was demanding that the Republicans go nuclear, cause the nuclear option, so that it could be a simple majority to open the government. And Republicans know better to not do that, because they do it for them. And if they do it right now, then they better hope that Trump goes autocratic or does something to destroy the other side, because if the other side of us got the White House again and the nuclear option was in effect, then all their nightmares would come true in terms of social justice, wokeness, and DEI. So the narrative took hold, and it is believed to be the truth that the real people to blame for the government shutdown and the perpetuation of the government shutdown was Republicans, not Democrats. Because Republicans, told by Mike Johnson, went home, continued their extended vacations so they didn't have to deal with Epstein things, or swear in the lady that got elected to be a congresswoman from Arizona. So government shutdown, we can't do that, sorry. They see Trump demolishing portions of the White House, reveling in making sure SNAP benefits would not be paid. Big money exchanging hands during a government shutdown. Watching him having his Great Gatsby Halloween party. Watching him living it up while people starved. This is French Revolution level stuff here, folks. Him building his ballroom makes you almost think that he's trying to rebuild an American version of the Palace of Versailles. It's to the point where when you look at what he was doing during the government shutdown, living it up, remind people that this is the 21st century version of Let Them Eat Cake. A quote that they said Marie Antoinette had said, but she didn't really say that. But the propaganda of it during the time of the French Revolution was more prevalent than the actual fact of the matter. But the thing is that what was said that was not necessarily what Marie Antoinette said. Trump's actions is not deniable. You can't deny it. He wasn't acting like, nor is he acting like someone who's worried about his country. He's going golf, having parties, destroying the East Wing so that he can have a monstrosity of a Versailles ballroom. He wants a palace that he himself could live in. It's like the plane that he got from Qatar. Oh yeah, it's going to be the next Air Force One. It's for the government, but I'm going to keep it. Once I get out of office, it's going right to my library. The fucking library. What is it going to be? His presidential library is just going to be scratch and sniff books? I won't even insult comic books because that's still over his head. So that's all the background and the time between the start of the government shutdown, during the government shutdown that we're still in, but we're in the tail end of it. So comes now the section where we discuss how it's ending and how people are very upset of how it's ending. People feel betrayed by the Democrats involved in this. The 7 Democrats and 1 independent who caucuses for the Democrats, who have decided, in their infinite wisdom, to relent and vote the Republicans to open up the government again. Again, reminding you that the whole point of us being at this impasse at this time was the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act subsidies to make sure you still help people get health care even when the premiums are skyrocketing. People are mad about this. People are very upset. The podcasters that I listen to or I see on YouTube, I mean, a lot of them are very upset, very angry, very pissed, thinking that Schumer is weak and the betrayal of Tim Kaine and these other Democrats that are lining up, who in their explanations of trying to do this is just because they're doing this so that they'd be able to get a vote on the ACA subsidies. Just a vote. And we can't have a vote when the government's shut down. Folks, the Republicans and Trump were not negotiating at all during this government shutdown. All they wanted to do is have this clean CR, get the government paid for, then move on. They don't want to hear about this ACA nonsense. Democrats were coming to the table to negotiate, and Democrats was negotiating a subsidies extension for a year. And they didn't want that. They don't want to help people. Fuck that, right? Everyone is mad about this. I can understand that. And in my thinking of this in the past few days, I thought about how could Democrats spin this for it not to be this epic catastrophe, this just grand, just capitulation, where they had the momentum, the high not only of the people that supported them, or the very least was against Trump during the No Kings protest, from the high of the tsunami blue wave that just tore the shit out of Republican thinking. That was a repudiation. That's not even a word. And just a backlash against Trump, Trumpism, and their behavior during the government shutdown. That, again, for Virginia, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, all but 6 counties voted for Spamberger. Mandami got the mayoral position in New York City, despite the fear and the fear-mongering and the hate-mongering and the Islamophobia and the racism towards the man, calling him a jihadist. Despite all these gains, I can understand the mindset of people thinking that they got betrayed by these Democrats that let them completely down, that turned their backs on them, that just capitulated and bent the knee. And it's hard to figure out how to spin this, right? I won't try to spin it. But allow me to spin a theory of why this may not necessarily be that bad. For the healthcare issue, yeah, it's that bad. The premiums are going to skyrocket. It was going to skyrocket thanks to the big, beautiful bill. That was going to happen. The subsidies was going to elapse. That was going to happen. Something in the hem and haw, the ebb and flow of politics occurs during this time of government shutdown. The Democrats reducing their asks down to one issue, which was the subsidies, and the Republicans refusing. Republicans spin it, saying that it's all the Democrats are shutting it down because of this one little thing. They can't get rid of this one little thing, and so they're shutting it down. But the thing is, the narrative goes for the Democrats on this. Because the Republicans gets painted, and I think rightfully, as those who benefit from the government shutdown. They wanted to go after SNAP benefits for a long time. And when the government shut down, then Trump was able to do his broadsword thing of just cutting benefits. To deny them. Wanting to, eagerly. And when the courts themselves told Trump to fund SNAP, he went to court, begging the court, going up to the Supreme Court to stop it, to do not give SNAP benefits. And the Supreme Court voted to extend the pause on the benefits. So the narrative politics was won by the Democrats. Republicans are to blame for the shutdown. The Republicans' actions from Trump on down, from the various issues that came up on this government shutdown, is on them. And the perception is that the Republicans don't care if you suffer. They don't care if you do not have SNAP benefits. They do not care if your health care is going to go through the roof. They don't have a plan for health care. Like every other time that the Affordable Care Act was on the chopping block and they were trying to get rid of it, they're trying to get rid of it desperately. It was like a broken record mantra for them whenever their pundits would go on their talk shows and talk about how they have to repeal and replace Obamacare. But they had nothing to replace it with. They had no plans. Constantly they asked Donald Trump, you want to repeal Obamacare, but do you have a plan? Do you have a plan in place to replace it? And he would say he has concepts of plans. The closest thing to a plan that was talked about was from a pundit from CNN talking about, oh, we'll just have the free markets, deal with it. Not really, which is another buzzword tagline, as opposed to actually being a tangible, robust healthcare plan. And again, that's just give it to the private sector. Let capitalism take over. One of the reasons why the ACA was passed, and one of the things it helped that people liked, is the fact that it would prevent insurance companies from kicking people off or denying coverage for pre-existing conditions. Give it back to them, to the private sector. They'll have no guarantees for that. And it will be in their best interest for their profit margins, not to help people on who they will give funding to, or who they will starve out of funding if they have someone who has a pre-existing condition. Do we not remember that? So yeah, the Democrats were on the right side, the side of the angels, in this narrative of the government shutdown. And the Republicans, from Trump on down, are seen of those who callously did not care, and still don't care about those who will be suffering. Trump's building a ballroom. He doesn't want to hear about affordability. He said that recently, when affordability was one of the big words coming out of the special election, especially concerning New York City. I don't want to hear anyone talk about affordability. Doesn't care. He complained when he did an interview with Laura Ingraham like a day or so ago, how one of the things that Gavin Newsom in California, he's so terrible, is that he's getting whole swaths of the Pacific Palisades, all this place that used to be for the rich, the rich and the wealthy. He's going to try to build low-cost housing there. That bastard is going to help the poor. His very instinct is that he doesn't want to help the poor or help anybody else but himself. So as I'm ranting and raving about this, and again, there's so many topics to go through, which I'm not going to go into, unfortunately. I wish I could. But again, all this leads into the credence that the Democrats were on the side of the angels during this government shutdown. And why many people feel betrayed by them for these 7 Democrats and Angus King, the independent from Maine, to capitulate and vote for the Republicans to shut off the shutdown and turn the government back on. And why I'm not all that upset about it. Do I think it's a betrayal? I don't know. I can understand those who think it, and I'm not going to say that they're wrong. But again, I'm going at this not as a spin, but as a spin theory. The theory is that the Democrats saw the No Kings protest. The Democrats saw 7 million people come out to stand against and protest against Trump, the policies of Trump. Stand 7 million strong across the country. This was at the start of the government shutdown. The Democrats saw the hedonistic behavior of the let them eat cake mentality of Donald Trump during the time of this government shutdown. The money that he was getting, the things that he was destroying in order to rebuild. The bullshit about the air traffic controllers. And all the other 1,001 different shocks that Flesh is heir to that wasn't going to touch him, wasn't going to touch any of these wealthy Republicans in Congress or in the Senate, or their pundits that go on CNN talking about the government shutdown and talking about, the scourge of Obamacare, the scourge of SNAP, and all the people were abusing it. Well, because these people that are talking ill of these things, they're all wealthy. None of them are being harmed by the government shutdown. None of them being harmed by the disappearance of SNAP. None of them are being harmed by the elevation of costs in healthcare. Because they can afford it. They don't care. If it happens to them, it's a tragedy. Happens to you, even if you vote for them, sorry. That's on you. You should have made more money. The Democrats understood that the Republicans, through their actions, inactions, lack of empathy, sociopathic lack of empathy, they were benefiting from this government shutdown, and they didn't care. So the theory goes like this then. With the belief of not only the no kings and the special elections, that the country as a whole, in its majority margin, no matter how small the majority might be, believes that the Republicans and Trump is benefiting and responsible for the government shutdown, the Democrats would be able to try to spin this in that when they relent, they're relenting to turn the government on so that people can get the benefits back, who can get the SNAP benefits restarted so they can feed their families, so that they can get the furloughed workers, the federal workers, their back pay so they can go back to work. To bring back the air traffic controllers that were missing so the flights that were canceled can be redone so that airports can be back in business, especially we're going into the holidays. So in that theory, it's not the Democrats that did wrong here in turning it back on. It's the Democrats that are showing that they give a shit upon the people that are suffering. It's the same people that Republicans and Trump do not give a shit. Even in perception, even its cold, cynical politics, Democratic perception is that they care more. That they could not stop. They were not going to get their way on the ACA subsidies. They fought the good fight, and they relented for the sake of the people. Because Republicans prove themselves that they don't care. And that is something that they can hammer home for the Democrats. They can hammer home right into the midterms. And with the one stipulation that the Democrats asked for, the vote on the ACA subsidies, that sometime down the line, right? The thing that they voted, that was the thing, the deciding factor for these 7 Democrats and 1 independent to vote with the Republicans. They know that the Republicans are not going to vote for this. Not in the Senate. It will go down. And if somehow it survives the Senate, Mike Johnson already said that he won't put it on the table. He won't put the bill on the floor. So it would die in the House. Democrats know this. The majority of these Democrats are in the twilight of their career in the Senate. Either those are going to be retiring soon, or their next election is actually farther down the road than the midterms or even the presidential election coming up afterwards. So they are gambling on the fact that their capitulation for themselves will not politically affect them in the long run. It's an interesting gamble. But again, I understand how people feel betrayed about this. But imagine they do this for this vote that they know is going to fail. Then they're going to take that information and go, see, we turned on the government to help you. We voted against our own party interest. We voted with the Republicans to turn the government back on so that you get your benefits. We wanted to help you get the subsidies for your health care to be extended for 1 year. 1 year. Well, they whine about, it's only temporary and they shouldn't really have them anyway. Yeah, well, the Trump tax cut was temporary until you made it permanent, so blow me. But if the vote does come and they fail, and people will just like think this is all for nothing, that's when the Democrats will go, see? They went through the government shutdown not caring about you. And we went through the government shutdown, we were still here fighting for you. It's a smart tactic, if this is really their tactic. They allow these 8 senators to break away from the rest, allowing the majority of the senators in the Democratic caucus to still oppose turning the government on. So they could be held blameless for the bending of the knee. This is a theory. I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe they did really just cave. Maybe that is it. Maybe it's the Occam razor. That's the easiest direct explanation. But doesn't quite understand. It doesn't quite jive with the successes that those who oppose Trump has gotten from the No Kings and the special elections. Why would you cave with so much public momentum if it wasn't a tactic? If it wasn't a tactic for the long term, a calculation to send it through the midterms and beyond, where the President of the United States, who his very actions inspired 7 million people to step out of their homes, drive to places to protest, and express themselves. Through his behavior and through the behavior of the Republicans during this government shutdown, they branded themselves as not caring about the American people. And the Democrats can just point to them about it. They can point to this ill-fated ACA subsidies vote. And when that fails, they'll see, despite all of this, they still don't care about you. And this is your proof. We tried. We went down fighting. We tried. We had no choice but to open it up so that you would no longer suffer. That is a hell of a story. We'll see if it turns out to be the case, though. Alright. The ranter rants because the Earth's rant's always rising. We'll get into other things soon. We'll get into the lack of due process, the brutality from ICE, not only on migrants, but on American citizens. The president who says you're not going far enough when they throw a woman down, a mother in front of their children, and break ribs. Or they fire tear gas into a car and it hits a 1-year-old child. The beatings, the gun pointings, all that. The National Guard being sent to places or being stopped being sent to places only to be sent anyway. The defiance of the courts. Oh, there's so much to talk about. So much to say, so much to say. But good travels. Have a good night.